What's going on?
Hey, man. Happy President's Day.
Yes. Somebody said good music. Mike said good music. So I give, again, this is Greg Combs. Gave this to us. Let us use the intro music.
Sounds good. Just got on a little late today, huh?
Yeah, number to call in, 845-366-2095. 845-366-2095. Lot going on. Packed show. Big show. Talk a little Tom Brady. Maybe a little impeachment. That's always a hot topic. The Tom Brady Lombardi toss heard around the world. Tom Brady getting some shit because he was drunk. Talk about that a little bit. Hall of Fame, Major League Baseball Hall of Fame, and the decision they made. Friend of mine went on a date. I'll tell that story. Changing names to protect the innocent. I think it might be like an ongoing saga. We'll talk about that. Brandon Marshall tweet at Tom Brady and some of the stuff that was the responses that were put on there. I'll read those. I think some of those were interesting. And we're going to have VJ Lawrence is going to be on at the bottom of the hour to talk about COVID and high school high risk sports. VJ, he'll be on the show. He is an athletic trainer for the Poughkeepsie School District, and they're actually starting a basketball season tomorrow. So locally here, there's been a lot of talk. You know, they canceled the high risk sports. They canceled the basketball season. So it's going to be interesting to kind of get his take on high school sports, COVID, the high risk sports, and you know, kind of how that decision was made, and you know, so on and so forth. Right? Kenny, what'd you do for President's Day?
Still living it. Actually, I was watching the History Channel before you came over. There's an epic documentary on George Washington. So watched that during dinner and was trying to get the kids to join in and watch that so they could understand more about the history of this wonderful country. So that's what I was doing. And then you came over and I heard the news about...
A little late. I was a little late getting here, so a little frantic.
Right. Why were you late?
So our cat got out. Abby's cat. We have two cats, Leo and Lily. And Leo, unfortunately, is missing. He got out. Of course, he's a black cat, a little bit of white, and it's dark out now, and he's out there all alone. So if you see a little small black and white cat, mostly all black, in the area of Uptown Kingston, Dunham Avenue, which is right off of Lucas, before you get to the Stewarts, you know, let us know. Abby's kind of sad. She's a little distraught about it. So I was out walking through the snow trying to find the cat, and you know, so missing cat. If anybody, you can go on my Facebook page and you can share the pictures of the cat and stuff. I think Kenny's trying to find it, but I think we're having a little trouble.
You posted it today?
I did post it. So
go.
Oh, there he is right there.
Right up on the screen.
There he is right there. So if you see this cat, you know, let us know. Yeah, so that's kind of sad. You know, hopefully nothing happens. But you were talking about the History Channel, right?
Yes.
There's a great documentary about the food that built America.
I thought you were going to have something to say about presidents.
No.
Because last month,
well,
it's
bad to talk about. It's bad to talk about those. It's bad to talk about them right now, right? George Washington and Thomas Jefferson and all those guys.
Why?
Like aren't they canceled?
I don't think George Washington is canceled.
We're gonna cancel Abe Lincoln. I think we're gonna cancel George Washington.
Oh boy.
I'm just saying.
I hope not.
Don't have to get canceled already. Just started. The food that built America. I'm going to tell you right now, if you haven't checked that out, it's awesome. They talk about the McDonald's. It's a timeline, right? They go Heinz, Hershey, late 1800s, early 1900s. Then they get into McDonald's and Baby Ruth and all these different things. And it's Bird's Eye frozen foods and the Post cereal. and how that kind of came about with the Kellogg people and the inner turmoil and the fighting and everything. Then they go into pizza with Domino's and Pizza Hut. So it's awesome, really. There's also the one that the Men That Built America, which talks about what the hell's the name? Carnegie or Carnegie, depending on how you want to pronounce it, and Rockefeller and Edison and Ford and all those guys. So it's pretty good. But I wanted to get your take, Kenny, on Tom Brady throwing the Super Bowl trophy. Let's start with that. Have you seen it? I've seen this all over. I can't even believe this is a story and such a big story. Like Tom Brady, there's two things going on with Tom Brady right now. One, he threw the Super Bowl trophy. So that's a problem for Lorraine Gross, by the way.
Who is Lorraine Gross?
Lorraine Gross she's the daughter of the Tiffany Silversmith who created the Lombardi trophy. So Lorraine Gross, she said she's offended because Tom Brady threw the trophy from one boat to another. She is offended. It was disgraceful and disrespectful to her family and her father that Tom Brady threw that ball without any care like it was a real football. Like it was a prop. And she actually said, quote, "I didn't sleep for the past 2 nights because of this. I was that upset."
That was a pretty big throw. And is there some type of protocol for the Lombardi trophy? Are you supposed to throw the Lombardi trophy? I know then when the Stanley Cup gets shared among the teammates for hockey, they drink out of it and they bring it to parties.
That thing's been
what's
broken.
your understanding of the protocol for the Lombardi trophy? And is there only one Lombardi trophy that gets sent, or do they each get it and keep it for a year? What's the deal with that?
No, I mean, if you win the Super Bowl, there's a Lombardi trophy for your team that you get, and it's yours forever.
Oh.
The Stanley Cup there's one Stanley Cup. You have it for a year, you give it back. You got to win it again. If she's going to be that mad, then Lord Stanley's, I mean, where's his family? Because they would be outraged. I mean, Gronk used it as a bat and bunted a ball with it and dented it one time during the Super Bowl. I mean, she's talking about how, you know, and I kind of get it to an extent.
They got some height on that throw. I mean,
Yeah.
look at that. That thing could have hurt someone.
And I don't think it was disrespectful. Like, she's saying it was disrespectful and all the work and time and effort that gets put into making that trophy, right? And I understand to an extent, but I would actually go as far as to say, I think that's they're celebrating it.
But
they won.
Oh, so I was going to ask you, what is respectful about that? And now you can tell.
I'm just saying some people could take it as, yeah, it's a seller. If they didn't give a shit about the trophy, they wouldn't be throwing it to the other boat.
I don't understand that at all. I don't know what that even means.
How about that, Karen?
If they didn't care about the trophy, they wouldn't be throwing it to the other boat.
Yeah.
Okay. So go on. She felt that her grandfather would have been upset.
By the way, yeah. No, it's her father.
Her dad.
So she didn't even make the damn thing.
Well, they have to ask
It's
somebody.
a family legacy, right?
Was
Why
her
is
dad
she,
even alive?
I don't know. How do you even do an interview? How do you even do an interview and sit there and just talk about your outrage that Tom Brady threw that trophy? It's not like he spiked it and then peeled away in his pickup truck and shot dirt all over it and drove away. I don't understand. I don't understand the outrage. I just can't. I can't understand why she didn't sleep for 2 days. It's not like they canceled the Lombardi trophy and he's not getting any credit. As a matter of fact, nobody knew who she was or her father.
I'm just guessing
until
there
this.
wasn't much news. There wasn't much news, and so they had to put something on the news.
I don't know.
There hasn't been much news.
Well, let me just say this. She did say that a lot of work and time and effort goes into making that trophy. A lot of work and time and effort goes into winning a Super Bowl, right? Like, I don't think people understand the amount of work. This is what amazes me when people criticize athletes so much. They will never understand the amount of work, effort, sacrifice, failure, and pain it takes to get to that point, to be the in the top less than 1% in your industry. Hey, let's make no mistake. These football players and baseball players and basketball players, NBA, MLB, NFL, and hockey players, you name a professional sport, bowling, ping pong, whatever. The amount of time and sacrifice that they put in doing all the things that the other people that are not as successful in the sport won't do, they do it. And most people out there, the other 99%, never understand because they don't try to be in the top less than 1% in their field, right? Why? Because if they did, they'd make more money. But they don't, because there's a lot of sacrifice and time and pain that you go through. And a couple years ago, Tom Brady on his off week, on his bye week, when everybody else went on cruises or they went on vacation, they went to an island for their bye week. When he was on the Patriots and they were already going to win the division, he went and he flew out to California and worked on his bye week with his quarterback's coach because he didn't like his arm slot. He didn't like his arm angle, his arm slot throwing the ball. I mean, most people don't do that on their vacations, right? They're not going to take their bye week and go to work. They go away. They take a break. They relax. They recharge, whatever it is that they do. So it just always drives me nuts when people overly criticize athletes when they talk about the money or, if you want to criticize the way guys are out, play on the field and for our benefit, for our sake of, for what we do, that's one thing. But when some of these people just are consistently just bashing some of these athletes, they never understand. It takes a lot of work. I keep hitting the microphone because I'm trying to touch the microphone less. Because my wife said, don't touch the microphone. You touch the microphone too much. So now I keep smashing my face into it, and then I'm not close enough to it. I'm trying to take her advice.
I think it's smart to take your wife's advice.
Is it?
Yeah, very. Can't go wrong.
What's interesting about her is she's great. I love her. She also does all the same stuff that she accuses everybody else in the house of doing. And that's what I love about her. It's adorable. I'm not going to get too much into that or I'll be sleeping here in the studio tonight.
Crickets.
Don't you just love uncomfortable silences?
I just like to hear what you have to say, so if I just stay quiet, I'm going to hear something else that you might regret.
I regret everything. You know how they say no regrets?
No regrets?
Yeah, I have all regrets. No, I'm just kidding.
There you go. I waited.
Yeah, there you go.
I waited, and
there you go.
There it was.
There goes the bomb.
What's on your agenda today, Nicholas? Before we have your guest from Poughkeepsie, we don't want to get into that topic of local sports yet.
No, we'll get on that at the bottom. The bottom, as they say in the biz, the bottom of the hour. I thought the Brandon Marshall tweet was interesting. And some of the responses.
Well,
I'll read it. You want me to read it?
Yeah, for those who don't know what had happened.
He made it. So Tom Brady was videoed being basically carried to his car wherever he was going. Not his car. He had a driver, but he was kind of smashed. He was drunk. And there was a video of him walking to his car, not really too straight. But Brandon Marshall tweeted, which, by the way, again, is spot on. Brandon Marshall tweets, why are people so mad at Brady? He gets drunk because he won a world title. Y'all get drunk because it's Friday night. Y'all not the same. He's right. Right? These are people who will drink to celebrate they completed another week of work. And then they're going to be critical for no reason to just seek out something to be offended by. Kind of what I'm doing now. I'm offended by this.
It seems that people just have to have some reason to talk about something.
So one of the responses was from this lady. She said, my father was an alcoholic. Seeing him drunk triggered some pretty awful moments in my life. Wow. Whether he likes it or not, he's a role model for children. Why is it after every great win, players have to drink copious amounts of alcohol and look stupid? Do it in private. She wasn't treated too kindly.
Yeah, what does she
In the
expect?
comments.
She expects Tom Brady not to be able, or anyone not to be able to be in public and celebrate a little bit. I mean, I don't really know what he did wrong. What did he do? He was seen in public inebriated.
He was drunk. Yeah, he was drunk.
Did he do something?
He wasn't driving. He was walking from the party to his chauffeur and wherever he was going.
So he wasn't doing
and he
anything.
took him home.
He was just walking from the party to his car, and maybe.
And there's people are mad. They're outraged. Tom Brady was drunk. Oh my God.
Wow. I can't even understand how someone would bother putting on Facebook or some social media that they have a difficult time relating to that. People don't have enough things to do.
My father, right? Not to get too deep into my family story.
Let's not slander or libel anyone.
But you know, there was issues in my household.
Oh, sorry about that, folks.
There was issues in you know. And most of you know my brother was killed by a drunk driver. I didn't get triggered over seeing that. And I guess people deal with things differently, I understand. But the perfect response to the tweet was, your trauma is not Tom Brady's responsibility. That's perfect. Why do people constantly feel like they have to tell other people how to live their lives? Because what's interesting to me is, I guarantee you, a lot of those people that are mad about that, or, you know, it goes back to the COVID with the masks, when people say, you know, you don't care if people die. You know, if you want to go out in public, if you don't stay home all the time, you don't care if other people die. But a lot of those people will go out to dinner, drink a bottle or two of wine, or have a couple drinks, and then get in their car and drive home. So when you preach upon high, it just always irks me.
Well, you get into the issue of role models. I'm not taking a position that I believe in that, but some folks believe that when you're in the public eye, you are a role model to others. I completely understand this post in response by Alana, which states, your trauma is not Tom Brady's responsibility. I can understand why she feels that way. But what do you say to all of those folks who believe that these athletes are role models and therefore have to live by a certain code 100% of the time?
It's unrealistic. They're human beings. It's unrealistic to ask somebody to be the way you want them to be. Because, by the way, I mean, there's 300 million people in this country or whatever it is. So 300 million people, I guess, have a different opinion of how you should be. So how do you, like, what are you supposed to do? Are you supposed to listen to the masses and live your life the way they would want you to live it? Or do they want you to live a life that they could say, you know, or blame you for, you know, when you're being a role model or not being a good role model? My response to that is, I mean, if that's what you're worrying about, maybe you need to be a better parent.
I can say.
What do you think about that? Let's hear your thoughts.
Here.
I'm going to push the mic away.
Okay. I got two words that some folks would believe in response. And those two words are Ray Rice. Where's the connection?
Now, hold on a second.
You said
you want me
you were
to
going
guess
to put
the connection?
mic away. Oh, yeah, go ahead. You go ahead. Good. Guess
I mean,
the
I don't know where Ray Rice
where
comes
are
in
we going?
about being a role model.
Being a role model.
I thought you were talking about being a good parent, because then I thought maybe that would have been the who was the Adrian Peterson.
Adrian Peterson is another example.
That's the guy who hit his kid with a switch, right, or something.
Exactly.
So
this is a really emotional subject for many people, and that is that professional athletes are role models and need to be held accountable. And so the Tom Brady example is this example of a guy who's a role model, who's doing something that some folks perceived was not appropriate in public. I don't have a problem with it, but some folks believe that he's a role model and it touches a nerve with some people, and now he's going to be subject to cancel culture. Ray Rice, role model or running back, lost his job because of his spousal abuse back in when, 2017?
Well, same thing with Kareem Hunt with the Chiefs.
Kareem Hunt with the Chiefs. So my point is that some folks will say these guys are role models and it is their responsibility. That your trauma is their responsibility. And so you just have to make a column and in the column say which trauma is their responsibility.
Wait, how is their trauma? How is her trauma Tom Brady's responsibility?
I don't have a position on it. I'm just making the analogy that is the professional athlete a role model? And therefore, if he is he accountable to the public for the way his or her actions have an effect on the people in the community who buy tickets, who look to them as role models? So that's why I said Ray Rice. I gave an example that's an extreme. Ray Rice struck his spouse. Ray Rice was canceled. Yep. Ray Rice should have been able to keep his job, some folks believe, because his responsibility has nothing to do with the trauma that millions of people might have been suffering. Now, I went to the extreme because Tom Brady's just celebrating having some drinks, but it's an alcoholism issue to some. Ray Rice smacked his wife, lost his job, and was subject to a cancel culture. Do these athletes have a responsibility or not? I think I'd take a bright line rule. Either they do have a responsibility or they don't have a responsibility. And I'd like to know that from a black and white, bright line rule. Either they do have a responsibility and your traumas are their responsibility or they don't.
So is that all or nothing?
I would love to hear comments.
Is that
people think?
But hold on a second. Is that all or nothing? You're a role model 100%. You have to live up to this standard. You can't make any mistakes. You can't have a slip up. You can't see anything. Can't do, right? Or is there is it like Mike Raposa 50-50? I mean, he says 50-50, also up to the parents to explain. I'm with Mike where I think you're a role model to an extent, but at home and now I think parents can be better and maybe they can even use these things as teaching moments, right? Ray Rice, and the reason Ray Rice was really canceled was for the actions, but there was video of it. If there was no video of what happened, he'd still be playing.
I'll tell you why why Ray Rice was canceled, because it was going to affect the bottom line of the Ravens. Now, you and I both don't know the answer to the question.
Well, why do you think that's Colin Kaepernick, though, right?
We have our opinion. So we don't know why, whether it was just because there was a video or whether it was because of their bottom line. I don't think...
But the video affected the bottom line, too. I mean, the video...
Could have.
Same thing with Kareem Hunt.
I have no idea if people stopped buying jerseys or stopped selling commercials or stopped buying tickets. I have no idea. I don't think you do either. Neither of us have the ability to look at the books. But it's a wonderful thing to talk about.
No, I mean, there's a measurable... Right, I think there's a measurable... People, you just go online and it was just how bad it was. I'll never... I won't watch women's groups.
I don't know that being online can really measure whether it was affecting their bottom line or not, because if you swim in certain circles, you see who's online. There are millions of people who just don't go and have the same friends online that others have. So let's just leave it at, we don't know if it affected the bottom line of the Ravens. That's just the example I was giving. But how do you feel about a bright line rule? It doesn't matter what you do off the field. Tom Brady shouldn't be censored by the NFL for a public act of drunkenness, right? So Ray Rice, should he have been fired, lost his job for having a domestic violence circumstance? Now, it's in their contract. That's the difference. It's in their collective bargaining agreement that they have to act in a certain way. And so the owner has every right to exercise that clause. But just from our discussion, it's always interesting to hear how people think whether someone should lose their job for what they do outside of the lines, whether it's your employment, like you and me. Could we lose our job for what we do outside of the lines of the job, or are these professional athletes?
If it affects the team and it affects the business owner, then you're gonna lose your job. And this is, do you think he should have lost his job? Do you not think he should have lost his job? I don't know. Look, again, it's that line of how much of a role model are you, and crossing that line. It's not your right to work in the NFL, right? It's a privilege to work in the NFL. So where do you? I mean, it's an interesting topic. Now I understand. Ed says,
what's the number?
Ed Sickler says getting drunk and punching a woman are two different things.
Absolutely
correct. That goes without saying. I mean, there's different sides of it, but he brought up the Ray Rice because I think now you're taking it to an extreme, or you're kind of judging how much of a role model should these guys be.
Yeah, that's the point.
Yeah,
you're right. It's what trying to spark some discussion here and some comments, and we're getting some good comments. Can you keep it?
Look, at the end of the day, he's out. And by the way, there's consequences for your actions. You're going to punch your wife. You're going to be Kareem Hunt and kick a woman in the hallway at a hotel.
And where is he playing now?
You're not. I don't think he is. But you're going to be gone. You're going to be gone. I mean, if I get a DUI, I could lose my job. Simple as that.
Why should you lose your job for what? Why should you lose your job unless the offense that you have committed affects your job?
Kareem Hunt is on the Browns. Chad Pulaski, NFL insider.
That's right. See? So anyway, wait. You raised an interesting point, which is, how do you feel about whether someone should lose their job if what they've done outside the lines does not affect their job? It's easy to say, well, there's a clause in the collective bargaining agreement for these professional athletes, and therefore they should lose their job. I just want to know how you feel. Maybe some folks feel differently. I'd love to hear some comments from others. Give us a call at 845-366-2095. First person that calls gets a Starbucks card.
Oh, my God. I got to watch the phone.
Hope your Bluetooth is on.
Nadine says domestic violence and physical abusing someone is against the law.
That's for sure. But do you lose your job for getting into an act of domestic violence that is against the law? Do you lose your job for it? So
if you get a DUI, and you just get pulled over and nobody gets hurt, but you drank the same amount of alcohol and now you crash and hit somebody and now somebody's paralyzed, you lose your job? Do you lose your job depending on how severe the outcome was? So are we waiting for a really bad outcome to then do something?
Why do you think that the outcome has an effect on whether you lose your job if what you've done has nothing to do with your job?
Well, should it affect your job and then does it are two different things. So
right. Does it affect you? Let's take the premise. Let's take the hardest
it doesn't.
premise.
I guess it doesn't affect my ability to do my job.
That's the question.
And
if what you've done by breaking the law does not affect your ability to do your job, should you lose your job?
No, because I think
you've heard it right here, folks.
Hold on.
Commit murder. But you could be a great dentist
because
you get to keep your job.
Because you have to. Because with something like this, it's either yes or no. You can't have a middle ground because that line will constantly move, and then you can fire people. You can fire some people for that offense, and then not other people for that offense. You know what I mean? Does that make sense? Because let me ask you this:
about whether the boss is going to treat people differently, with disparate treatment.
Yes, I make $1 million for my boss. You make him $100,000 a year for we work for the same company. We both get DUIs. I have a better chance of keeping my job than you do because it's a money thing.
I think we both have a great chance of keeping our job if our job has nothing to do with driving.
Maybe.
Yeah, I have no idea, dude. But
I'm not saying people should keep their job. So I don't want it to be mistaken that I'm saying, well, you beat your wife, keep your job.
Why not? Why aren't you?
But I'm saying because I think when it comes to the law, and you would know this better than I would, it's yes, like there has to be a firm, right? There has to be like a firm line that you can't cross. And if you cross it, you shouldn't be able to treat people differently based on if you make them money. people said if Ray Rice was at the beginning of his career, instead of being a running back a few years in, he probably keeps his job. Right? Some people said, Ray Rice, because there was video, it made it a lot worse, appearance wise and in the public eye. That's why he lost his job. I don't know. So, I mean, it's an interesting topic. Brady didn't break any law, Dybert, but that's your point, I would imagine. An electrician for a small company will keep their job. Yeah, because, again, now that comes down to public perception, right? If you play for the Baltimore Ravens and you punch your wife on camera, you have a better chance of losing your job because it's going to be all over the place.
Did we get to speak about Gina Carrano last week, or was that something that happened since we last had our...
I don't know.
Well, for people who don't know, if we didn't talk about it last week, actress Gina Carrano was not rehired by Disney for The Mandalorian because of certain words she used in tweets. So it wasn't a public act of drunkenness. It wasn't spousal abuse. She did not break any laws. She was exercising her First Amendment rights, and she was not rehired. Were you aware of that?
Yes, I'm aware of it. Yeah, because I like The Mandalorian.
And I think that's just another example of how, look, you can lose your job for things you do physically and things you do verbally.
Now, just so we're clear, it's okay for Democrat. Now, see, this is what we took. Now you get into this topic, which is the show will go off the rails here. But some people will say, well, it's cancel culture on the right, but if you're on the left, you won't get canceled, right? So a lot of famous people can hold up a severed head of a president, have a video where you stab the president in the park, in a video. You can talk about blowing up the White House. You can have Johnny Depp talking about when was the last time. We should start talking about the last time an actor assassinated a president. And you could say all these things, and you can call somebody Hitler, Stalin, Hitler. And you're not even brought up about being canceled. Again, I'm not going to defend her tweet, what she said. I just think that we're giving too much power. We're giving too much power to people that really shouldn't have any power for any decisions that are made.
Look, all I know is I've got the Mandalorian. Chase, my son, has the T, TEA. The
Mandalorian tea, yeah.
Mandalorian tea, and on that Mandalorian tea, one of them, it happens to be the actress on his can of tea. So I told
throw
him,
it out.
I told him, don't throw it out. I said, that's a collector's item.
You can't drink that tea now.
You can't drink this
Can't
tea.
drink that tea now.
I said, Chase, you need to hold on to that tea because that tea is going to be worth some money.
Yeah.
Because he collected all of the tea from The Mandalorian. One of them happens to be her, face on the.
And she can whoop some ass. She's a former MMA fighter, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, she'll land on her feet somewhere.
Yeah.
Get a job.
She'll land on her feet with
The Wire. It's called the Daily Wire.
Yeah.
She was on with Ben Shapiro.
That's Ben Shapiro. I couldn't think of his name.
Ben Shapiro says they're going to make
They're going to give her a podcast.
Make a podcast or a movie.
Can we get her on the show?
I sincerely doubt it. We can't get 10 listeners.
Can our producer reach out to her and see if we can get her on the show?
Oh boy.
So we're gonna get VJ on here in a second. But I want to keep a tab.
7:36.
Yeah, I know. I want to keep a tabs on this though. So I was talking to a friend of mine, and he was saying that he had a date. Now you know this person too, Kenny, but I'm not gonna say his name.
What's VJ's last name?
Lawrence. It's Vinny Lawrence. So this person told me he had a date, and then I immediately stopped everything I was doing. And he's been out of the game for a while. Let's just put it that way. So he's nervous because the date went really well. The first date went really well. He texted her. They're going to go out again. And I found it odd that I go, well, you didn't call? And he goes, nah, calling's creepy. And I'm like, what? And then he's like, well, if I called her, that's creepy. If you text her, that's normal now. I thought about it. I'm like, holy shit, you're right.
After the date?
Yeah.
To say, hey, I had a great time?
Yeah.
You can't call
Because he goes, if I call her, people have that animosity now of answering and talking to people on the phone. Huh. These younger people. So now what happens is now you're texting.
We are really out of touch.
So, yeah. So now you're texting, and it kind of made a little bit of sense because then I thought, well, shit, if somebody comes and knocks on my front door, I'm like, yo, who was that? When back in the day, you'd be like, oh, come on in. Who's here? I can't believe. I'm so happy somebody's here. Now you're like, did you call anybody? You expecting anybody here? You know, I'm telling Abby, go in the bedroom. It's like nobody comes to your, nobody just shows up anymore. So anyway, he's out of the game. And I was surprised when he said it went good because I told him, I said, look, I thought you were just going to tell me that you shot yourself in the foot 50,000 times during this. But he said, no, it was great. So they're going to go on a second date, apparently. And what he's nervous about is if that goes well, then he's in trouble. He's in trouble because he's been out of the game for so long. What if now he has to perform?
Oh, my gosh.
So I just kind of want to put this out there to the people so you can comment,
out to the people,
give advice if you watch it on the replay. And there was a baseball reference, a couple of baseball references in there. Because I'm like, well, you've been out of the game for so long. And he's like, yeah, I wonder if I can, if it progresses and we get to that point, if I can get a chance without being judged. And I'm like, all right. I said, I understand what you're saying. How would you how do you if you're a woman out there, are you given a pass the first time if you're kind of to a guy that's been out of the game for a while? Like, you can only hit off the tee for so long. At some point you got to face live pitching. Like, you don't come off a Tommy John surgery and just jump right back in the game. Right? Even professionals throw simulated games. He's scared that he has to come. He's got to come in with no preseason. It's got to be tough. I don't think he's got, I don't know how that works because I wanted to try to call in the on deck batter. So put somebody in the closet, turn the lights out real dark, and tag somebody else in. I'm just curious. I don't know because I've been out of the game for so long. He wants advice. He wants advice from me. I don't know what to tell him. Christ, I've been married going on 20 years. Ken, you got any advice?
I'm just letting this train go as far as it can off the
get
rails.
some relationship advice before we give VJ an
I have no relationship advice. It's not what I'm really good at. Man. I'm good at one relationship. Lucky to keep it together.
I mean, not everybody. I told him. I said, women got to understand. Not everybody's Stan Musial. You don't go to the war, come back from the war with no preseason, come back in April and win an MVP. That's unheard of.
Get Vinny on the phone.
All right. And I think this is going to be an ongoing saga because it's going to be interesting to see how this thing plays out.
So who are you calling?
Anyway, I told him, I said, look, just have the second date. We'll talk about it. I said, you're not even putting the cart before the horse. You're at before the wheel was even invented stage. So that's where you are right now.
Who are you calling, and are you all connected?
No, I'm not connected yet. I'm calling in VJ Lawrence. So VJ is, and he'll tell you he's got a podcast, but he's the athletic director, or not athletic director, Jesus. He's an athletic trainer for the Poughkeepsie School District. And they're starting up winter sports, high-risk winter sports. So that's a pretty big topic right now, especially in our area, that it's just canceled and with COVID and kind of how these things, how are these things going to work out? What are they doing? Maybe some of the protocols that they put in place, what discussions were had. Was he consulted being the athletic trainer that has to be there also in that environment? So I'm going to call him up right now. Give me a second.
Nadine Ferraro says, I'm all about people falling in love. Go with the flow. Let it happen. People are so hung up on being perfect always. Call that girl.
Hey, hold on 1 second. All right. VJ, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
All right. We're talking now with VJ Lawrence. His picture's up there.
Oh, wow.
What's that?
I said, oh, wow. Got my picture and everything.
Yeah, listen, we're no joke. We're no joke. All right. Production value is high here.
Yeah, I've been watching the last couple minutes of the show. I had no idea what you were talking about with the dating advice. I must have missed something there, but yeah, no, great job.
So,
surprise! It's about you.
Yeah.
We're going to ask you about dating.
We're going to ask you about us. I'm sure. Look, me and VJ go way back a long time, and we wanted to have him on because you're an athletic trainer in the Poughkeepsie School District, correct?
Yes.
All right, and they're starting a high-risk winter sports season. They're doing basketball and cheerleading, right?
Yeah. Technically, we've already started. We've been going about a week now, and season's supposed to open up tomorrow, weather permitting.
So, tell me a little bit about how that kind of started. Like, was there a process? Did you have to go to meetings? I mean, did the district or the board? Did they talk to you about it? Like, how was this decision made?
I'll be honest with you, Nick. I don't know if you know my situation with what happened. I've been working at Poughkeepsie for the past 17 years. I worked for 2 different companies in that time, but I just recently got rehired as a self-employed contractor. So I've only been there for about a week and a half now.
Okay.
So it was basically I came in and we were opening up. So I've been following the guidelines, trying to read up on those, and they had guidelines in place that we've been following. So that's basically where we're at.
So what are the guidelines?
Basically anything you'd imagine when you go to your doctor's office, right? You need to answer all the questions. You need to do the COVID health screening. So we do that for every athlete every day when they come into the building, right? We make sure that the athletes are socially distanced as much as possible during practice. When they're not practicing or doing drills together, they make sure that we're separated, and we make sure that they wear face coverings at all times. Plus, we encourage good hand washing and hand sanitizing before, during, and after practice.
What are the amount of kids that you're talking about that are involved in these sports?
In the high risk sports or a sports total? Because right now, like Nick said,
in your school district,
in my school district total, it's probably lower than it has been in the past, obviously. But right now, I'd say for the winter season, probably close to 100 between all the sports.
So you're in the city of Poughkeepsie, and the Poughkeepsie School District is able to have high-risk sports like basketball, both boys and girls, varsity playing. What about JV? Is that
we have a JV boys? We have a JV boys team, but no JV girls team, and no freshman team this year either, and no modified. And
are there fans in the field house?
No, we're not going to have spectators. We have, like I said, we have our first game tomorrow, so we'll be and that's going to entail like a whole new different process, like the way our benches are set up. We're going to have the seats separated 6 feet apart.
What are the other schools you think you're going to be playing?
Well, our schedule's out, so you can go take a look at it. We're playing. I know we got games against John Jay, Ketchum, Lords, Arlington, Beacon.
Wow.
And I'm probably missing 1 or 2 in there.
So now I can't wait to hear some comments from the people, the 7 people that are watching us.
It's more than 7.
Hopefully it becomes 17. And then
it is 17, right when you said that.
It's 18.
Right.
This is a really interesting topic because I can't fathom why our school district couldn't pull this off when you just mentioned some pretty large school districts like John Jay, Arlington, Ketchum, Poughkeepsie. We're up here in Ulster County. Saugerties is small. They didn't go forward. Kingston is large. They're not going forward. I mean, I don't understand why they couldn't pull this off.
Yeah, I don't want to disparage any other school districts. They have to make tough decisions. There's a lot of sacrifices that a lot of people are making, and not just sports. You got drama clubs and other teams and clubs that have to make these kind of sacrifices too. So it's a tough decision. I don't think anyone makes this decision lightly.
I think that's a really fair point. It would be interesting to know what was the reason for the successful, for the ability to do it. That's a very fair point.
I think a lot of schools just value, I don't want to say, a school district like Kingston or Saugerties doesn't value their athletic program, but I can see a district like that taking a look at what's going around them and just saying, it's not easy. It's not easy. Even the way practices are run,
Yeah, there's
a lot of changes that have to be made, and it's tough.
So
I get that, but
that's what I was going to ask about practices. So are you at the practices?
Yeah,
okay.
I'm in the gym covering the varsity practices right now. We're lucky enough that we have the middle school right across the street, so JV is able to utilize the middle school. So they're not coming into the same building. We don't have to share any gym time between teams, which is great.
So has there been any trepidation by players? I mean, do you know of any players that either opted out or everybody that's there? Are they
personally? But I can tell you, our numbers aren't as high as they usually are, and I would imagine that has to do with a little bit of that. And it also too, the kids aren't in school, so right, so you don't you have that different situation because in Poughkeepsie the kids haven't gone back to school yet.
So you have to take temperatures, you have to do all that kind of stuff, take temperatures.
Yep.
And
every day we have a COVID checking sheet. It's the same kind of deal you go when you see you go to your doctor's office.
Now they didn't talk about testing kids, right? Like
no,
COVID testing athletes.
No, I mean obviously at the high school level it's kind of tough to enforce testing. I know at the NCAA level they're doing periodic checks, like random checks for the team.
In basketball, are the players wearing their masks while inside the lines actually playing?
Yes.
Okay,
yes,
so they're wearing their masks while they're running up and down the court.
Yes.
Now, I'm not a doctor.
You're not? I
No.
am. I am a doctor.
I'm not a doctor. Is there a concern of any sort of adverse effects while somebody's playing, breathing into their in and out of their mask?
No.
There's no concern of somebody passing out or.
No, number one, I haven't seen any of that like I said, in the week and a half that I've been back. I haven't heard any of that situations happening in other schools because other school districts are making kids play in masks during the fall or fall season when we had soccer games outside. Even the soccer athletes had to wear masks during their competition. And there's been no instances of masks inhibiting breathing whatsoever.
I just find it crazy that they would be wearing masks running up and down the court. I'll be
honest with you, Nick. It's not as tough as people think. I work out once in a while.
He works out once in a while.
I see your flexing pictures pictures all the time. This is what VJ puts on. One day, V, we're going to talk politics on here because we are on kind of the opposite sides of the spectrum when it comes to politics.
I know that.
So VJ's posts are either him talking politics or him flexing. That's it. Yeah. There's no in between.
I don't think it should be that difficult to wear a mask while playing. And
it's not. But you see if you posted one of my cardio pictures, I wear a mask. I do 70 minutes of cardio on the elliptical, going pretty hard for those 70 minutes, and it doesn't really affect your breathing as much as people think.
See, now I go to the gym, and I don't do that much cardio. I'm just getting back into it, and I'll get on the treadmill, and I find it difficult. I mean, once again, I haven't done. It's difficult anyway because I'm a fat piece of shit. But I'm just saying, at the end of the day, I just feel like I had a meeting in the city one time when everybody had to first start wearing masks, and I'm telling you, halfway through the meeting, and I felt like I was gonna maybe that was mental. That could have been a mental thing, though, right?
Yeah, it absolutely could have been mental.
I do think. I do think sometimes. Sorry, keep going.
Go ahead, Vince. You're our guest. I'll be quiet.
No, I do feel like when you first have to get used to wearing the mask, it can be a little uncomfortable and it can be in your mind a little bit. I definitely think that could be something that happens. But yeah, I haven't had any instances of kids having trouble breathing. And I should say too, we do give the kids mask breaks.
Yep.
So if anytime the kid wants to take their mask off, they're perfectly allowed to like leave the practice area and take their mask off for 30 seconds or so. And coach has mask breaks built into practice where the kids all separate from each other and they can take their masks off for a little bit just to get
Yeah, I mean, there's
get it off. I mean, keeping it on the entire time, even at work, for people, it's tough to keep that mask on, for an entire shift, no matter how long you're doing, So there's, once in a while, just to get it off your face a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I'm all for wearing
I totally
masks.
understand that.
I'm for wearing masks, social distancing, so we can kind of get things back to normal. Andrea Sass said wearing masks is a sacrifice the athletes would be willing to make to actually play. I think in Kingston, that's been. I've seen a lot of talk about it with Kingston High School athletics that, let the kids just play, right? Like, is it Kingston's not doing it because of the fear of, like, what's the fear?
We don't know.
I mean,
we can't speculate as to what the reason is. Vinny made a good point. Like, we're not here to disparage. I'm not saying you were.
Yeah.
We're not here to disparage the district's decision not to play. We just don't know, really. Even by listening to the school board's informational meetings, you don't know if it's an issue of, as you said, fear of the unknown. You don't know if it's an issue of having coaches volunteer and be available. You don't know if it's resources. We just don't know. It's simply troubling or disappointing or frustrating to see that other districts are able to do it, and we want what they have. You always want what someone else has.
But we say follow the science, right? Follow the science, follow the science, follow the science. Is the science, right? So from what I've seen from the New York State numbers, from the contact tracing, that sports is a very minimal spread.
Right. And I would counter that with, we haven't had a lot of high risk sports happen. This is the first time we're venturing into that realm.
Yeah, Nick.
Right.
Well, you don't have a big enough data pool.
He's right. This is why we have him on, because
and especially in the fall when you had a lot of outdoor sports, which were more moderate risk. You didn't have any high risk sports going on at all. Even when the numbers were high, that those numbers stayed low because, number one, people were following guidelines very well. Number two, there's a reason that these sports are considered high-risk sports versus the sports that were happening in the fall.
Yeah, because you're inside. It's contact, right? I mean, you got to play defense on somebody.
Yeah,
you're making contact. You're breathing on them. Like, my son played baseball all summer. He had tournaments all summer.
Yeah, baseball's a really easy sport to social distance in, right?
Yeah, but
it's really easy for me because I can never hit, so I've never got on base anyway.
Keep
so
in mind,
I just stand by the catcher for 3 strikes, and then I'd be done. So
I think Kingston's field house is also being used for the vaccine.
That is correct too.
And so, from a location perspective, it's not in the.
But that doesn't
not
matter.
available.
But that doesn't matter.
Yeah, it matters a lot.
It doesn't, because you're not
available.
but you're not gonna have fans. You can play that game anywhere. They've had the NBA
floor
players in a
set
bubble
up.
in a gym.
They have the floor set up full time for the vaccinations.
They could play at Miller. They could play at Bailey. They could play a lot of different places. Just shut your argument down.
I'm just here to put out ideas. I didn't say they're good ones.
Yeah, I think when it comes to Kingston, they looked at the situation they were in. And they were like you said too, with the field house being used, they were like, we're just not going to be able to accommodate people the way we want to accommodate them. So it'd be easier. It's hard. I hate to say that, but it'd be just easier not to go through with it. What I would encourage athletes to do, especially in the high risk area, is go play another sport. I know it's different and scary, but so sometimes you might find something and that you really excel at, especially with some of these basketball players could join the track team, and all of a sudden they might be a high level track athlete. I've seen it plenty of times at Poughkeepsie. A kid, just an athletic kid, comes out for track and just natural ability just blows it away.
Now, do you have any fears of getting COVID while you're in that environment?
I mean, I'm not going to say I'm not a little trepidatious, but I'm confident in my practices that I'm doing the right things to not get infected. Like I said, we know how viruses spread, right? They spread through water droplets, usually coming out through the breath. So as long as you're not getting anything on your hands, and you're not touching your face and bringing that into you, as long as you're staying away from people, you should be in a good position. I don't have as much interaction with the kids as I normally would.
Yep.
Obviously, it's even I'm taking thoughtful consideration in my rehab programs to do things where I can instruct somebody at a distance, instead of maybe being hands-on as much as I would be in the past. And even that's a pretty small number of kids, so I'm not too worried. It was, I'll tell you, my first day back, it was a little nerve-wracking to see a bunch of kids in a group like playing basketball, because I just haven't seen it in so long.
Well,
it was just like,
it's
I
like
haven't
watching
seen groups of people like that, like commingling in so long. It's like it was a little jarring at first.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because I had this discussion the other day with somebody, and I said I was in an old Yankee clip came up in my Facebook feed or something like that, and I'm like, oh my God, all those people are together in the stadium. Like, or you watch a TV show now and you see people together, and you're like, it's been so long now that it seems awkward, right? It seems awkward when you watch a TV show and people are together.
Yeah, it's been so hammered in our heads, we got to stay different from people that it's alarming, right? It's alarming to see people close together. But pretty soon, I think, hopefully by next fall, we'll be back to some semblance of like what it used to be like.
Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting to follow this as it progresses through the season, and just see how they're able to pull it off, if they're able to complete a season without really much interruption.
Yeah, I mean, even you look at the pro teams had a hard time controlling their athletes, and you look what happened with the NBA this year. How many games they had to cancel. The NFL scheduling was a mess. Luckily, they didn't have to cancel any games outright. But I mean, there were a few weeks there.
The New Jersey
definitely made us fantasy owners a little like. Yeah,
the New Jersey. I haven't been asked back to fantasy league because I think the last time I was in the league, I drafted Brett Favre and played him every week, and he wasn't even in the league anymore. He was retired because I just don't give a shit. Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting. I have one last question for you before we wrap this up.
Of course.
Do you think the risk of COVID transmission, and this is an opinion question, this is not anything, right? So this is an opinion. Do you think the risk of COVID transmission is greater than the mental health risk for teenagers?
Is the COVID-19 a greater risk? Yes, and I say that because, and something like this can't really be an opinion, right? This is something that because I'm a medical professional. This is something that like it's sort of also my professional opinion. So, right?
Okay, so let's hear it.
It is sad, and you hate to see kids go through some kind of mental depression or mental illness because they're not able to play their sport. But there are resources for that, and I think that's something that's really been stigmatized, especially in athletics, is mental health issues, because it's that you need that mental toughness, and if you're not mentally tough, you're failing, and that's not always the case. I think people need to be able to reach out and communicate their feelings.
Yep.
And if you know there's an athlete out there who's having a hard time because they can't play their sport, it's okay to get them help, to get them professional help. It's not a failing. It's not a weakness. It's something that we all have to go through sometimes.
Yeah,
and
I agree.
That's my piece on it.
No, I actually agree with that. I think also there's the other side though of not having the social aspect of, and this goes also outside of sports, right? So you have the social aspect in playing the game and not being able to play the game, but you also have the social aspect of not being in school, and
100%.
maybe other things are going on at home, right? Like the parents aren't making enough money, so they're arguing at home. Home life is a little more stressed because people are losing businesses because of the COVID and everything like that. And is that over time? And my fear with all of this is, I'm not saying everybody go out and start packing Yankee Stadium and have restaurants at 100% capacity and do all these crazy things like everything is normal. But I think we can do some things to get back to normal, because my fear is the long-term effects of this on people is going to be much bigger than we realize, as far as mental health, different issues, and these things that might not, it might not poke its head up, for years to come down the road with some of these kids. I mean,
and there's always a risk. There's always a risk there. And like I said, the best thing I can do to avoid that risk is to promote, mental health awareness and mental health services, because I think you're right in the fact that we're going to need a lot of that in the next couple of years, because I think a lot of people are going to be almost have PTSD over what's happened in the past 2 years or a year and a half. So
I take a risk opening my mouth every time I come on this podcast. That's why Kenny doesn't talk much, and he's like, I'm just waiting for you to blow yourself up with a comment.
Well, you do a good enough job of that on your Facebook feed, so
Yeah.
I'll see you on there.
Plug your podcast. Plug your podcast real quick.
You can check me out at the Generation Millennial podcast. Me and my co-host Keith, the guy I went to college with, started a podcast back in, I believe, October or so. We've been going pretty strong on that. We had to miss last week, but we'll catch new episodes usually come out on Friday. You can check that out on Anchor FM or on Spotify. And
Nice.
You can also check out my YouTube channel at Just Another Guy Talking About Stuff. They're on YouTube, so I'd love it if you subscribe to my channel. I'm at 60 subscribers right now, so.
Oh, well, you're going to get a huge increase after being on this show.
I can't wait.
Just like
The
Dave
Nick-
Portnoy's
the Nick
pizza
Krantz bump.
reviews. Huh?
I'm getting the Nick Krantz bump.
That's right. It's like the Oprah effect, right?
Bam,
Yeah.
on there.
That's right. Do you miss being a ref?
I do. I can't wait to get back to shows. I only got, for those who set this up, I'm a professional wrestling referee on the side. That's kind of like my side gig. I've gotten to do some amazing things in professional wrestling that I'm really proud of. But yeah, I've only gotten to do one show since the pandemic happened, and it was an outdoor show, and it was kind of just awkward and refereeing in a mask and
Yeah.
away from the crowd. Like the crowd had to be distant, and we had to be 10 feet away from the crowd. It was a different situation.
But you know what though? You're doing something that you love, right? Like you went after, you went and did it. You're doing something that you love. Like I always say if I could go back 20 years, I would love to have a sport. I would love to have a talk show or a radio show. And I'm like, well, screw it. We're going to, we do this. And then, I don't care if people like it or hate it. They think it's stupid. They think I'm an idiot, whatever.
Yeah, you just get to do it. Right. And that's the great thing about the internet now is everyone's able to be able to get their stuff out there. You feel like it's back to like when the VHS cassette recorders came out, and like everyone's making home movies for the first time.
That's right. Recording MTV raps.
That's basically what we're doing
now
now. That's basically what these podcasts are. I mean, you get yourself some equipment and you just basically, start a podcast or a video live stream and start.
Yeah, I tell you,
we're just
when
two guys talking about stuff like you're doing on yours.
That's right.
Yeah, when I was unemployed, it was like, you know what? Everyone's doing it. Let me jump on the bandwagon and give me something to do.
Yeah, you got time. Might as well do it.
Yeah.
That's kind of exactly what happened, right?
Yeah.
We just had extra time and said, this could be fun. Let's talk about things and get some comments and get fired up, Nick.
Yeah. It's
Say
actually
some crazy stuff.
It's very easy to fire Nick up. So
man, let me tell you. What's funny too is we went shopping yesterday, and 3 people told me how much they liked the show.
I don't believe you.
I'm telling you, at Sam's Club the other day, it's hysterical to me because I'm like, really? You watch it? They're like, yeah, I watched the replay. Like, really?
We need to stay. We have to
How
get
did
some
you people
more.
watch this?
Yeah, look,
Enjoy
last time I was like, oh my
be honest.
God, enough already.
They're waiting for me to blow myself
That's
up.
what,
That's what they're waiting
I try
for.
my best to raise some issues that will get you fired up, and I'll keep writing down those topics and see what I can do for the next show.
Well, me and VJ will just talk politics,
Would be awesome.
and that will
I could
be
moderate
it.
that. We would be just fine.
yeah.
Wow, we could do it a whole episode. You want to do an episode on that? I like talking about politics more than I like talking about my job. So.
Well, we can always have you on for like a 7-minute stretch on a weekly basis. It'll be the Vinny window
Well, weekly's a bit much.
on the spot with Vinny Lawrence.
Weekly's a bit much.
Yeah, but you add a couple.
I still want to like the guy at the end of the
I
day.
think it would be cool to have 7-minute windows with certain guests who want to come on. We
Yeah.
have people who put on comments. Sometimes these comments get up to over 100 comments, and if any one of them would want to call, you could get 7 minutes of what your thoughts are, and then we could see how other people react. It could be more fun that way. I think it would
Yeah.
be certainly interesting to see how the community feels about what we're saying. And I'm really appreciative of the fact that you called in. I think it's wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me. It was fun.
Yeah, thanks for calling in, Vin, giving your perspective and the expertise and kind of being in. Maybe halfway through the season, we'll check back and see how things are going.
Definitely.
Or if there's any news, I mean, if there's any news that comes out even before then, obviously, reach out or we'll reach out to you and we'll kind of get you on. But thanks for calling.
Oh, good. Stay warm, guys.
Yeah, man. Thanks.
Thank you very
See ya.
much.
Take care.
Yeah, that's good conversation right there.
Yeah, absolutely.
People want Eddie Sickler. I'm all in for VJ and Nick political segment.
I'm telling you, people want. Well, we try to have a balance of some sports stuff, and some things that are on in the community. I do think we often go back to the whole issue of local sports, and maybe we are. I get it. The New York Knicks is primarily sports and stuff, but it seems that every week we go back to, why aren't we doing some sports? What's going on in the school? And nothing's changed. So we got to find some new information to talk about.
Well, there's always, right now, here's the deal though with sports, right? Right now is that dead zone, right? You have the NBA, you have NHL. Not a lot of people watch hockey. I mean, we could talk about it. The Devils just missed, they had 19 players on their COVID protocol and they missed 2 weeks of playing.
You're right. Nobody cares about it.
Right? Nobody cares. The Knicks, I mean, until they prove a little bit more, nobody's really talking about them.
Hey, did you get a stimulus check yet? Did they even come out yet?
No stimmy.
That's what we'll talk about next time. That still hasn't happened. All right, we're over the hour mark.
Yeah, and there's just really not much going on, right? You have baseball, hot stove, NFL is over. Once you get into spring training, it starts to kick up, and then baseball season, I'll be out of my mind.
I even tried to watch a basketball game just for the show, and I couldn't get through it.
I like the NBA. It's just really nothing to.
March Madness will be starting soon.
Michael Jordan bought a NASCAR?
Yes, Michael Jordan.
A NASCAR car.
He got involved with NASCAR. It was all over the Daytona 500, and I basically gave it about 5 minutes before I lost interest.
Well, is that good or bad for NASCAR?
It's great for NASCAR.
Is it good for his team? Because he was a great player, but as being a GM and an owner now, he hasn't won anything. So now he's going to own a NASCAR team?
I don't know.
Unless he's driving, I don't care.
Wallace. I mean, Bubba Wallace is
I don't know
an
who
African
that is.
American. He's an African American driver.
Bubba Wallace is?
Yeah.
See, I don't know much about NASCAR. I'll just sit at the traffic circle.
All right, man.
One last thing, though. One last thing. I feel bad for the people in Cooperstown. Because that's 2 years in a row that city is just decimated. Because they're not having a Hall of Fame induction ceremony. They didn't have it last year. They didn't have it this year. And this year was Derek Jeter. And they were probably looking at having the largest, probably the biggest induction ceremony of all time with the amount of people that probably would have been up there with Derek Jeter being in the Hall of Fame. And they're going to do a virtual TV induction. But I can't tell you how much that hurts the town of Cooperstown. Do you know how much they rely on the Hall of Fame? Do you know how much they were relying on Derek Jeter's Hall of Fame induction? They're missing out on all of that. I mean, all of that. Now, I understand you can't put all those people in the field, but it's completely decimating to that town that I don't know if they're going to recover because they've missed Cooperstown youth baseball. That's 150 families a week, every week up there, going to the Hall of Fame, spending money, buying food, buying souvenirs, buying all that stuff, going to the baseballism store. They have nothing going on up there. And I know a lot of other people don't either, but their one thing is baseball. And when there's no baseball and there's no Hall of Fame induction, especially the year Derek Jeter, who's the first guy to get 100% of the ballot, and he's a New York Yankee in New York, that's terrible. Terrible. It's a good show. I want to thank Kenny.
Thanks, man. You got to use more sound effects.
I know.
All right, I'm going to take that away from you. I'm going to start you pressing buttons.
You're going to do everything over there?
Listen, the one thing I can do well is technically direct. You know? Good show. Peace out.
Again, I'd like to thank my man Kenny for being here, for being the sidekick, for keeping me in check and working the cameras and the screen back here. Thank VJ Lawrence. Check out his podcast. He was a great guest. We'll check back in with him. Let us know what you think. If you have some topics you want to hear us talk about, just send us a message. Peace.